Hello, soul-igniting story fam. Buckle up because today's tale is packed with sweetness and swoon-worthy magic. Let's jump straight into the story. The study door creaked open, and Samuel Trenton's world shattered before his eyes. What he saw would change everything. His breath caught in his throat. Time seemed to freeze as he stood motionless in the doorway, unable to process the scene before him. Just 12 hours earlier, he had been sitting in his leather seat aboard his private jet, surrounded by luxury that most people only dreamed of. But now, that life of privilege felt distant, almost meaningless. That morning had begun like any other business trip. Finale. Samuel had been reviewing quarterly projections with his executive team in Chicago when a sudden, inexplicable feeling washed over him. It wasn't quite anxiety, more like an urgent whisper that he needed to be home. Now, everything all right, Mr. Trenton? His assistant had asked, noticing the shift in his demeanor. Reschedule the afternoon meetings, Samuel had replied, already gathering his documents. I need to get back to Vermont. Today. No one questioned him. When you're worth 9 figures, people tend to accommodate your sudden changes of heart. Within 40 minutes, his jet was prepped for departure, the pilot filing a new flight plan back to Burlington, while the cabin crew rushed to restock his favorite single malt. Samuel gazed out the window as they ascended through cloud cover, the Chicago skyline shrinking beneath them. From this height, the sprawling urban landscape looked like an architect's model, miniature buildings where tiny people led their lives, each one as complex and meaningful as his own. The thought made him uncomfortable. Have you ever felt that unexplainable pull toward home? That sixth sense warning you something isn't right? Hit that like button now if you've experienced that gut feeling that saved you from disaster. Despite all external measures of success, Samuel couldn't ignore the hollow sensation that had been growing inside him for months. His calendar was perpetually full. Meetings with investors, charity galas, real estate acquisitions. His bank accounts swelled while his personal connections withered. Anna's voice had grown distant on their calls lately. Olivia's stories about school came in shorter bursts, as if she was learning that Daddy didn't have time for the details. Was this what success was supposed to feel like? Empty hotel rooms, meaningless small talk with people who wanted something from him, and a gnawing suspicion that he was missing what mattered most? The flight attendant had interrupted his thoughts, offering a fresh drink. We should land in approximately 2 hours, sir. 2 hours. Normally, he would have used that time productively, reviewing documents, making calls, optimizing every minute. Instead, he had found himself staring at the family photo on his phone. Anna's warm smile, Olivia's missing front tooth. When had that happened? He couldn't remember being there when she lost it. The jet touched down ahead of schedule, thanks to favorable winds. His driver was waiting on the tarmac, surprised by the early arrival, but professional as always. Straight home, Mr. Trenton? The driver had asked, holding the car door open. Yes, and quickly, please. The Mercedes had glided through the Vermont countryside, autumn leaves painting the landscape in gold and crimson. Samuel had barely noticed the beauty outside his window, his mind racing with possibilities. Was Anna sick? Was Olivia in trouble at school? Or was a strange urgency nothing more than middle-aged regret finally catching up with him? Now, as Samuel pulled into the circular driveway of his estate, something felt immediately wrong. The property looked abandoned. No warm lights in the windows, no sign of movement. The security light should have activated upon detecting his car, but the grounds remained dark. The fountain in the center of the driveway stood silent, no water flowing through its marble tiers. The mansion, all 12,000 square feet of architectural magnificence, looked more like a mausoleum than a home. Samuel killed the engine and sat for a moment, listening to the tick of cooling metal. The Vermont woods surrounding his property seemed to lean in closer, watching him, waiting. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the atmosphere, in the unusual stillness of the October evening. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of his car and approached his front door, keys already in hand. The house that had appeared on magazine covers, the crown jewel of his success story, had never felt so forbidding. What waited for him inside? Samuel pushed the heavy oak door open, his footsteps echoing across the marble foyer. The mansion had cost him $15 million 3 years ago, a reward he'd promised himself after his tech company went public. Now, standing in the darkness, the vastness of his home felt more like isolation than achievement. He hadn't always lived this way. Growing up in a cramped apartment above his parents' struggling hardware store in rural Pennsylvania, Samuel had learned the value of hard work before he could ride a bike. By 14, he was managing inventory and helping customers while his classmates played video games. His father's constant reminder, "Nothing worth having comes without sacrifice," had become his personal motto. At MIT, while other students partied, Samuel coded. His first startup failed spectacularly. His second limped along until an angel investor saw potential in his vision for streamlining supply chain logistics through AI. By 35, that company was worth $400 million. The acquisitions and investments that followed turned millions into billions. Financial magazines called him the quiet revolutionary for his ability to transform struggling industries without drawing attention to himself. Then he met Anna at a gallery opening in Boston. She stood before her own painting, a striking abstract that somehow captured both chaos and harmony. Unlike the social climbers who frequently approached him, Anna had challenged him, questioned his perspectives on art and life. Her authenticity was magnetic. Within 6 months, they were married. "Art exists to remind us we're human," she once told him. "When was the last time you felt truly human, Samuel?" The question had haunted him more with each passing year. Now, he moved through his silent home, running his hand along the designer furniture chosen by their decorator. Did any of it reflect who they really were? The Italian marble countertops in the kitchen gleamed coldly under the moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. When was the last time they cooked together, as a family, instead of having their personal chef prepare meals? A row of framed photographs lined the hallway, carefully curated snapshots of what appeared to be domestic bliss. Samuel paused at one taken 2 summers ago, Olivia on his shoulders at their Hamptons beach house, Anna laughing beside them. He couldn't remember the last time they'd shared laughter like that. Olivia had been a miracle baby. After years of fertility treatments, her arrival had felt like the universe finally aligning in their favor. Samuel had promised himself he would be different from his own father, present, attentive, loving. Yet somehow, board meetings and expansion plans had taken precedence over ballet recitals and science projects. Samuel squared his shoulders and returned to the study door. Whatever waited for him inside, he would face it. He had built a business empire from nothing, overcome countless challenges in the marketplace. He could certainly handle whatever mystery lurked behind this door. His fingers closed around the doorknob once more, and this time he turned it without hesitation. The door swung open on well-oiled hinges, revealing the warm glow of his desk lamp illuminating a room that should have been empty. But it wasn't. Samuel's study, normally a fortress of meticulous organization, looked as though a whirlwind had swept through it. Papers covered every surface, photographs spilled across his custom walnut desk, and in the center of this chaos sat Anna, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, glasses perched on the edge of her nose. She looked up, startled by his entrance. For a moment, neither spoke. The expression on her face shifted rapidly from surprise to confusion to something else. Was it guilt? Fear? Relief? "Samuel," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're home early." He stood frozen in the doorway, taking in the scene. This wasn't the wife he knew, the composed interior designer whose organizational skills rivaled his own. This was someone else entirely, a researcher, a detective, a woman possessed by something he couldn't yet name. "What is all this?" he asked, gesturing to the scattered documents. Anna removed her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "I didn't want you to find out this way. I was going to tell you when you got home tomorrow, after I'd made sense of everything." Samuel stepped closer, his eyes drawn to the photographs spread across his desk. They weren't family photos as he'd first assumed, but older images, sepia-toned and faded. Strangers' faces stared back at him from decades past. Men in outdated suits, women in high-neck dresses, children with solemn expressions uncommon in modern photography. One photograph in particular caught his attention. A young boy, perhaps 7 or 8, standing in front of a small farmhouse. The child's eyes seemed to hold Samuel's gaze, communicating across time with an intensity that made him pause. "Who are these people?" Samuel asked, picking up the photo of the boy. Anna's fingers trembled slightly as she took it from him. "That's Jacob," she said, her voice soft with an emotion Samuel couldn't identify. "Jacob Harrington. He lived in this house in 1984. Samuel's brow furrowed. "This house? Our house. Before the renovations, before the additions. This was originally a farmhouse built in the 1920s. The core structure is still there, beneath all the modern improvements." Samuel pulled up a chair, sitting across from his wife. "Anna, you're not making sense. Why are you researching the history of our house? And where's Olivia?" "She's at my sister's for the night. I needed space to work through this." Anna pushed her hair back from her face, a gesture Samuel recognized from her days as an artist wrestling with a challenging canvas. "It started 3 weeks ago when I was looking for Christmas decorations in the attic. I found a hidden compartment behind one of the wall panels. It contained a box of letters." She indicated a weathered cardboard box beside her chair. Inside, Samuel could see yellowed envelopes tied with faded ribbon. "Letters from whom?" he asked, struggling to maintain his composure. This wasn't the homecoming he had anticipated. From Margaret Harrington, Jacob's mother. The previous owners must have left them behind, or perhaps they were hidden so well that multiple owners missed them over the years. Anna handed him one of the letters, the paper fragile beneath his fingers. The handwriting was elegant but rushed, as if written by someone in a hurry or in distress. "October 15th, 1984, Samuel read aloud. "The noises in the basement continued last night. Jacob says he hears whispers coming from the walls, but Richard tells me it's just the old pipes and the wind in the woods. I want to believe him, but something feels wrong about this house, has felt wrong since we moved in last spring. Jacob won't go into the basement anymore, not even when Richard gets angry with him for being imaginative. I find myself avoiding it too." Samuel looked up from the letter, meeting Anna's gaze. "This is unusual," he said carefully, "but hardly something to get this worked up about. Old houses make strange noises. People are naturally superstitious." Anna shook her head. "Keep reading. There are dozens of letters spanning several months. Margaret documents everything. Lights in the woods behind property, cold spots in certain rooms, objects moving or disappearing. And then, in December that year, Jacob vanished. Vanished. Samuel's skepticism remained, but curiosity began to take hold. "What do you mean?" "He disappeared without a trace. According to newspaper articles I found in the town archives, the police conducted an extensive search. They suspected Richard, Jacob's father, but never found evidence to arrest him. The case went cold. The family moved away, and Jacob was never found." Samuel set down the letter, trying to process what Anna was telling him. "So you've been, investigating a 40-year-old missing persons case?" "At first, I was just curious about the history of our home. But the more I read, the more I felt connected to this family, to Jacob. It's as if the house wanted me to find these letters, to learn what happened." Samuel couldn't help but smile slightly. "The house wanted you to find them? That's not like you, Anna. You've always been a practical one." "I know how it sounds," she admitted. "But after reading the letters, I started noticing things too. The temperature fluctuations in the east wing, the strange knocking sounds at night when you're away. At first, I dismissed them, just like you're dismissing me now." "I'm not dismissing you," Samuel said, though they both knew he was. "I'm trying to understand why my wife is suddenly obsessed with ghost stories instead of calling me back or answering my texts." Anna's eyes flashed with rare anger. "Perhaps if you were home more often, you'd notice the things I've been noticing. Perhaps if you weren't always jetting off to another meeting, another deal, another excuse to avoid real life, you'd understand why this matters." The words landed like physical blows. Samuel pulled back, stung by their accuracy. Before he could respond, the study door pushed open wider. Olivia stood in the doorway, clutching something against her chest, her eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, you're home!" she exclaimed. rushing forward to hug him with one arm, the other still holding whatever treasure she'd brought. Mom said you wouldn't be back until tomorrow. Samuel embraced his daughter, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I wanted to surprise you, he said, glancing questioningly at Anna. Hadn't she just said Olivia was at her sister's? Anna shrugged slightly, a silent admission of her white lie. She hadn't wanted him to worry or rush home. Look what I found in my room, Olivia said, pulling away from the hug to present her discovery. It was a small book bound in cracked leather, its pages yellow with age. Written on the cover in faded blue ink was a single name, Jacob. Samuel's eyes met Anna's over their daughter's head. The skepticism he'd been clinging to began to dissolve, replaced by an unsettling realization that whatever was happening in his home, in his family, was far more complex than he had imagined. Olivia, he asked carefully, where exactly did you find this? It was under the floorboard in my closet, she answered, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I think Jacob wanted me to have it. I think he's been trying to talk to us for a long time. That night, after tucking Olivia into bed with promises they would talk more in the morning, Samuel and Anna sat at the kitchen island. Jacob's diary opened between them. The small leather-bound book contained the thoughts of a child, sometimes mundane accounts of school days and friendships, other times disturbing descriptions of his experiences in the house. October 3rd, 1984, Samuel read aloud, his voice low to avoid carrying up the stairs. Mom says the woods behind our house are just regular woods, but I know better. They whisper at night, when everyone's asleep. Not like people talking, but not like wind either. Something in between. Dad got mad when I told him. He said I was making things up again. Anna poured herself another cup of tea, her hands steady now that they were working together. There are recurring themes throughout his entries. The sounds in the woods, cold spots in the basement, and his father's increasing anger about Jacob's imagination. Samuel turned the page, scanning the childish handwriting that grew more frantic with each entry. November 17th. I saw lights in the trees last night. They moved like fireflies, but bigger and colder. Mom saw them too this time, but she told Dad it was probably just teenagers with flashlights. Dad didn't believe her either. He's been so angry lately. I'm keeping this diary under my floorboard where he won't find it. The same floorboard where Olivia found it, Anna noted, in what used to be Jacob's room before all the renovations. Samuel closed the diary, rubbing his temples. The businessman in him wanted to dismiss all of this as coincidence and overactive imaginations. But the father in him, the part that had been dormant for too long, couldn't ignore his daughter's conviction or his wife's research. What exactly are you suggesting, Anna? That our house is... He couldn't bring himself to say the word haunted. I'm not suggesting anything supernatural, Anna replied, though her tone lacked conviction. I'm saying a child disappeared from this house 40 years ago, and no one ever discovered what happened to him. Don't we have a responsibility to find out? If not for Jacob, then for ourselves? For Olivia? Samuel considered her words. Where do we even start? The police investigation went nowhere decades ago. We start with what we have, the letters, the diary, and the community's memory. Anna pulled out her phone, showing Samuel a social media post from the local historical society. I've been in contact with some longtime residents. Several remember the Harrington case, including our neighbor, Mr. Dalton. He's lived in that farmhouse down the road for over 50 years. The next morning, after explaining to Olivia in age-appropriate terms what they were investigating, the family walked a half-mile to Mr. Dalton's property. The elderly man welcomed them with surprising enthusiasm, ushering them onto his wraparound porch where a pitcher of lemonade waited despite the autumn chill. Been wondering when you folks would come asking, he said, his weathered face crinkling into a smile beneath a shock of white hair. Most new families in that house eventually do. Samuel exchanged a glance with Anna. What do you mean, most families? Mr. Dalton settled into his rocking chair, gesturing for them to take seats on the porch swing and wicker chairs. That property has changed hands more times than any other in the county. Nobody stays longer than 5 or 6 years. You've already outlasted most. We've been here 3 years, Anna said. Why would people keep leaving? The old man's eyes drifted toward their property, visible through the trees. Some complained about strange occurrences, noises, temperature changes, feelings of being watched. Others just said the place never felt like home, no matter how much they renovated or decorated. The Harringtons were the only ones who experienced something truly tragic, though. Olivia, who had been quietly sipping her lemonade, suddenly spoke up. "You knew Jacob, didn't you?" Mr. Dalton's attention shifted to the child, his expression softening. "I did indeed, young lady. Smart boy, always asking questions about nature. He used to help me feed my chickens sometimes when his father was indisposed." "What about the woods?" Samuel asked, noting how Mr. Dalton had paused when mentioning Richard Harrington. Jacob wrote about hearing whispers, seeing lights. The old man nodded slowly. "Those woods have stories dating back to the original settlers. The indigenous people who lived here before Europeans arrived considered that particular grove sacred or forbidden, depending on who translated their stories. There's an underground spring system running beneath it that creates unusual acoustics. Wind through the trees at certain angles can sound remarkably like whispers. And the lights," Anna pressed. "Phosphorescence from decaying plant matter, most likely, or reflected moonlight on the natural gas that sometimes bubbles up from the spring water. Science explains most mysteries, Mrs. Trenton." Samuel felt a wave of relief. Rational explanations existed for phenomena Jacob had described, yet Mr. Dalton's next words chilled that comfort. "But science doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain why 3 separate search parties with tracking dogs lost direction in those woods while looking for Jacob. It doesn't explain why compasses malfunction in the northeastern section. And it certainly doesn't explain what happened the night Jacob vanished." "What had happened?" Samuel asked. Mr. Dalton's rocking chair creaked as he leaned forward. "December 21st, winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Margaret called me in hysterics around midnight. Richard and Jacob had been arguing earlier that evening. She'd gone to take a bath, and when she came out, both were gone. Richard's truck was still in the driveway, but neither he nor Jacob was in the house. The police suspected Richard took Jacob somewhere on foot. Anna asked. That was their theory. But they found Richard 3 days later, wandering along the highway 20 miles away. Clothes torn, covered in scratches, with no memory of where he'd been or what had happened to Jacob. They administered polygraphs, searched every inch of his property and the surrounding woods. Nothing. What do you think happened? Samuel found himself asking, drawn into the story despite his lingering skepticism. Mr. Dalton studied each of them before answering. I think what Everson knows which took them both. It just decided to give Richard back. The family's walk home was subdued, each lost in their own thoughts. Olivia skipped ahead, seemingly unbothered by the morning's revelations, but Samuel noticed she carefully avoided stepping off the path into the trees that lined their property. The real estate agent never mentioned any of this history, Samuel said quietly to Anna. Would you have believed it if they had? She countered. Or would you have dismissed it as local superstition designed to lower the asking price? Samuel had to admit she was right. 3 years ago, he would have laughed off such stories. But now, with his daughter finding a hidden diary in the same spot its owner had concealed it 4 decades earlier, with his wife discovering forgotten letters that documented a family's unraveling, even his rational mind struggled to dismiss the connections. Have you ever discovered that your family home held secrets from long before you arrived? Those moments when the walls seem to contain stories waiting to be told? Subscribe now for more stories about families uncovering hidden truths beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect lives. As they approached their property, Samuel paused at the edge of the tree line, looking up at the house he had purchased as a symbol of his success. For the first time, he saw it through different eyes, not as a millionaire showcase, but as a repository of memories, both his family's and those who had come before. What now? He asked, watching Olivia race up the front steps, her earlier caution forgotten in the familiar sight of home. Anna slipped her hand into his, a gesture of intimacy they hadn't shared in months. Now we listen to what the house is trying to tell us. That evening, after Olivia had gone to bed, Samuel stood at the basement door. The heavy oak panel had always seemed like just another entrance to another room. The wine cellar, the home gym, the storage area for holiday decorations. Now it loomed before him, transformed by Jacob's words into something more significant. "You don't have to do this tonight," Anna said, coming up behind him. "We can call someone a historian, maybe, or—" "No," Samuel interrupted, his hand already on the doorknob. "This is our home, our responsibility. I need to see for myself." The basement light flickered as he flipped the switch, illuminating the stone staircase that descended into the renovated lower level. Despite the modern improvements, the polished concrete floors, recessed lighting, and temperature-controlled wine racks, the space retained an unmistakable heaviness, as if the weight of the earth pressed in from all sides. "I'll come with you," Anna offered. Samuel shook his head. "Stay here. Keep an ear out for Olivia. I'll call if I find anything." With a flashlight in one hand and Jacob's diary in the other, he made his way down the stairs. Each step seemed to take him further from his familiar world of boardrooms and balance sheets into something older and less certain. The basement was divided into several rooms, remnants of the original farmhouse foundation modified to accommodate modern conveniences. Samuel moved methodically through each space, comparing the current layout with descriptions from Jacob's diary. "The cold corner is where the stone wall meets the dirt floor," he read aloud from an entry dated November 5th. "Dad put in a new concrete floor last summer, but he left this part unfinished because of the water seepage. That's where the whispering is loudest when the moon is full." Samuel oriented himself according to the diary's descriptions. The original stone wall remained intact along the northeastern section, now incorporated as a design feature in the wine cellar. The dirt floor had long since been covered with concrete, but one corner showed signs of recurring moisture, a darkened patch that the contractors had never successfully waterproofed despite multiple attempts. He placed his hand against the stone wall, feeling nothing but cool, rough texture against his palm. What had Jacob experienced in this very spot? What had frightened the boy so deeply that he documented in secret? Moving his flashlight beam slowly across the wall's surface, Samuel noticed something unusual, a section where the mortar between stones appeared newer than the rest. Not dramatically newer, but different enough that his eye, trained to spot inconsistencies in financial reports, caught the variation in color and texture. He pressed against different stones in that section, testing each one methodically. On the fifth attempt, he felt a slight give, not much, but enough. Applying firm, steady pressure, he watched in astonishment as the stone recessed inward, triggering a mechanism that shifted several surrounding stones. A hidden compartment, roughly 2 feet square, emerged from the wall. Samuel's breath caught. Within the compartment sat a metal box, wrapped in what appeared to be plastic sheeting. A deliberate attempt at preservation. The plastic had yellowed with age, but had successfully protected the container from decades of basement moisture. His hands trembled slightly as he removed the package from its hiding place. Despite its protection, the box felt unnaturally cold, as if it had absorbed the basement's perpetual chill into its very atoms. Samuel carried his discovery upstairs, where Anna waited by the kitchen island, a glass of untouched wine before her. "You found something," she said, her artist's eye immediately assessing the dimensions and age of the package in his hands. Hidden compartment in the stone wall, exactly where Jacob described the whispering corner. Together, they carefully removed the plastic wrapping, revealing a metal lockbox, the kind used for document storage, with a simple key lock on the front. The lock, however, had already been broken, the metal hasp bent outward, as if someone had forced it open long ago. "Should we wait until morning?" Anna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Samuel considered this. Part of him wanted to delay, to maintain the fragile normalcy of their family life for a few more hours. But a stronger impulse pushed him forward, the same intuition that had urged him to come home early in the first place. "No, whatever's in here has waited long enough." He lifted the lid. Inside lay several items, each carefully arranged. A stack of letters bound with twine, different from Margaret's letters found in the attic. Several Polaroid photographs. And, most surprisingly, a small silver locket on a delicate chain. Samuel lifted the locket first, turning it over in his palm. An inscription was etched into the back, To my beloved Jacob, forever in my heart. M. M for Margaret, Anna said, leaning closer, his mother's gift to him. Samuel nodded, a lump forming in his throat. He gently set the locket aside and reached for the photographs. The Polaroid showed familiar scenes, their property, the woods behind the house, the original farmhouse structure, but from decades earlier. One image in particular drew their attention. Richard Harrington standing at the edge of the woods, his expression captured in a moment of what could only be described as terror. The date stamp in the corner read, December 21st, 1984, the day Jacob disappeared. These were taken the day he vanished, Samuel murmured, spreading the photos across the countertop. The final photograph showed something that made both Samuel and Anna freeze. The basement wall with the hidden compartment open, the metal box clearly visible inside. Someone had documented the hiding place. With increasing urgency, Samuel untied the twine around the letters. Unlike Margaret's flowing handwriting, these were written in a jagged masculine script, some on paper, others on scraps torn from notebooks or even paper towels. The first letter, dated December 22nd, 1984, read, If anyone finds this, know that I, Richard Harrington, am responsible for what happened to my son. Not in the way of the police suspect. I never laid a violent hand on him, but I ignored his fears. I dismissed his stories. I called him weak when he spoke of voices in the woods and whispers in the walls. And now he's gone. Last night, after our argument, I followed him into the woods. He ran from me, from my anger. I saw the lights he described moving among the trees. I heard what he called whispers. The world shifted around me in ways I cannot explain. When I finally found him in the clearing by the old hickory tree, he was speaking to something I couldn't see. Before I could reach him, the ground seemed to swallow him whole. I dug with my bare hands until they bled. I screamed his name until my voice gave out. But he was gone. This box contains a truth no one will believe. I'm hiding it where Jacob said the voices were strongest. Perhaps whatever took him will bring him back. Perhaps someone braver than me will find a way to reach him. Samuel's hands shook as he set down the letter. He reached for the next one, and the next, each documenting Richard's deteriorating mental state in the days following Jacob's disappearance. The final letter, dated January 5th, 1985, contained only one sentence. I'm going to the woods tonight to find my son or join him. Anna's face had drained of color. Richard didn't take Jacob. He was trying to save him. Samuel nodded mutely, the full weight of the revelation pressing down on him. This wasn't a case of parental abuse or abduction, as the police had suspected. It was something else entirely, something that defied rational explanation. He thought of Olivia sleeping upstairs, in the very room where Jacob had once hidden his diary. He thought of his own dismissal of his daughter's imagination, his absence during the time she might have needed his protection and belief. Without warning, the composure that had served him through countless high-stakes negotiations crumbled. Samuel Trenton, millionaire businessman, master of his domain, buried his face in his hands and wept. Anna moved to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. This isn't just about Jacob anymore, is it? Samuel shook his head, unable to speak through the emotion that constricted his throat. It wasn't just about a boy who had vanished 40 years ago. It was about what they might have missed in their own home, with their own child, while he chased success and she sought meaning. It was about fragility of family bonds and the terrible consequences of not listening, not believing, not being present. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with realization. We need to talk to Olivia in the morning. Really talk to her. Find out if she's experienced anything unusual. And then, Anna asked. Samuel picked up the silver locket, closing his fingers around it until he could feel the inscription pressing into his palm. Then we find out what really happened in those woods. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as the Trenton family gathered around the breakfast table. Samuel had barely slept. The contents of the metal box spread across his home office desk for most of the night as he read and reread Richard's desperate letters. Anna set a plate of blueberry pancakes, Olivia's favorite, in front of their daughter, then met Samuel's eyes with a silent question. How much should they share? How does one explain to an 8-year-old the complexity of what they discovered? Olivia, Samuel began, setting aside his untouched coffee. We need to talk about Jacob and his diary. Olivia looked up, maple syrup dripping from her fork. Is he okay? Did you find him? The innocent question pierced Samuel's heart. No, sweetie. Jacob disappeared a long time ago, but we found some important information about what happened. Was it the woods? Olivia asked matter-of-factly. The woods took him, didn't they? Samuel and Anna exchanged alarmed glances. Why would you say that? Anna asked, her voice carefully controlled. Olivia shrugged, taking another bite of pancake. The woods are different at night. They move differently. Sometimes I hear them talking. Samuel felt a chill despite the warm kitchen. You hear talking? From the woods. Not words exactly. More like, she tilted her head, searching for the right description. Like when you put a seashell to your ear and hear the ocean, but it's trying to tell you something. Anna reached for Samuel's hand under the table, squeezing it tightly. Have you ever seen lights in the trees? Samuel asked, thinking of Jacob's diary entries. Olivia nodded. Blue ones. They dance on new moon nights. Samuel took a deep breath. Why didn't you tell us about this before? I did, Olivia said simply. I told Mom last summer, and I tried to tell you on the phone once, but you said you were in an important meeting and would call back. Her voice held no accusation, just statement of fact. The words struck Samuel like physical blows. He remembered that call. He'd been in Singapore, closing a major acquisition. He'd promised to call back, but had forgotten entirely, absorbed in negotiations that seemed paramount at the time. I'm sorry I didn't listen, he said, his voice thick. That was a mistake. From now on, I want you to tell us everything you notice about the house or the woods, no matter how small or strange it seems. Will you promise to do that? Olivia studied his face, as if assessing his sincerity. Do you promise to listen? Really listen? I promise, Samuel said, meaning it more deeply than any business contract he'd ever signed. After breakfast, they took Jacob's diary and Richard's letters into the living room. Together as a family, they read selected passages aloud, piecing together the tragedy that unfolded in their home decades earlier. So Jacob's dad thought something in the woods took him? Olivia asked, following the narrative with surprising composure. Samuel nodded. Richard believed something happened that night, something he couldn't explain. The police thought Richard might have hurt Jacob, but these letters show he was actually trying to protect him. And then Richard went into the woods to find Jacob and never came back either. Anna added softly. What about Jacob's mom? Olivia asked. Samuel hesitated, then answered honestly. The newspaper articles say Margaret Harrington moved away a few months later. No one in town seems to know what happened to her after that. Olivia considered this information, her young face solemn. That's so sad. She lost everyone she loved. Yes, Samuel agreed, a new understanding dawning within him. That's why remembering their story is important. When we remember people, they're never completely gone. Is that why you brought home the locket? Olivia asked. To remember Jacob? Samuel nodded, showing her the silver pendant with its heartfelt inscription. This was Margaret's gift to her son. It represents how much she loved him, even though they were separated. Like how you love me when you're away on business trips? Olivia asked. The innocent parallel struck Samuel speechless. Anna stepped in, her voice gentle. Your dad always loves you, Liv. But there's a difference between loving someone from far away and being present with them. I think that's something we're all learning. That evening, after Olivia had gone to bed, Samuel sat alone on the back porch. The weather had turned cooler, but he barely noticed, wrapped his thoughts in a light jacket. From his vantage point, he could see the oak tree where Anna had hung lanterns, warm, golden lights that pushed back against the darkness of the forest beyond. What did wealth mean, if not security for those you love? What good was success if it came at the cost of presence? Richard Harrington had lost a son, first emotionally through disbelief, then physically on that winter solstice night. The man's desperate letters revealed his greatest regret, not listening when it mattered most. Samuel pulled out his phone and opened his calendar app. With methodical precision, he began canceling meetings, delegating projects, rescheduling commitments. The empire could wait. His family could not. Anna found him there an hour later, still working on his phone. "What are you doing?" she asked, draping a blanket around his shoulders. "Recalibrating," he replied. "I've spent years building something I thought would give us security and happiness, but I've been missing what actually creates those things." Anna sat beside him, her gaze following as the illuminated oak tree and the dark woods beyond. "Jacob's story changed you. It reminded me of what matters. All this," he gestured toward their expansive home, "means nothing if we're not truly living in together. Sometimes it takes confronting someone else's loss to appreciate what we have." Double tap that like button if you believe the most important things in life can't be bought. The silver locket lay heavy in Samuel's pocket. Tomorrow, they would continue investigating Jacob's disappearance. For closure, for truth, for the family that had been shattered in this very house. But tonight was for his own family, for acknowledging the precious fragility of their time together. "I want us to make changes," he said finally. "Real ones, not just promises I'll forget when the next deal comes along." "What kind of changes?" Anna asked, her voice hopeful but cautious. Samuel turned to face her, seeing his wife, truly seeing her, for perhaps the first time in years. "The kind that make me worthy of the love you and Olivia have given me even when I wasn't present to receive it." In the distance, the woods stood silent, ancient witnesses to his vow. The next morning, Samuel made a call that would have been unthinkable just days before. "Jim, I need you to take over as interim CEO," he told his stunned COO. "Effective immediately. For at least 3 months." The questions came rapid fire. Was he sick? Had there been a crisis? Was this about the Singapore deal? "It's a family priority," Samuel said simply. "Something I can't delegate or postpone." After ending the call, he sat in his home office, surrounded by the trappings of his success. Awards on the walls, signed deals in frames, the elegant furnishings that spoke of wealth and achievement. For the first time, he saw them as what they truly were, beautiful distractions from what mattered most. When he emerged, Anna was waiting in the hallway, having overheard his conversation. 3 months?" she asked, her expression a mixture of surprise and cautious hope. Samuel nodded. "To start with, I have vacation time accumulated from the past 5 years. Might as well use it. And after that, we reassess. But I'm not going back to 18-hour days and weekly flights. The company can run without me being in every meeting." Anna studied his face, looking for signs of the temporary enthusiasm that had characterized his previous attempts at work-life balance. Finding none, she stepped forward and embraced him. "Jacob will be proud," she whispered. That afternoon, Samuel contacted the local historical society. Within days, their living room hosted an unlikely gathering. The town historian, an elderly retired detective who had worked the original Harrington case, 2 longtime residents who remembered the family, and Mr. Dalton from down the road. "I can't believe someone finally found Richard's letters," the retired detective said, carefully examining the contents of the metal box. "We searched that basement 3 times. Never found any hidden compartment. Perhaps it wasn't meant to be found then," Mr. Dalton suggested, his weathered hands cradling a cup of Anna's tea. The town historian, Dr. Eleanor Watts, had brought archives of her own, newspaper clippings, property records, and a thick folder labeled Harrington case. "What happened to Margaret after she moved away?" Anna asked. Dr. Watts adjusted her glasses. "She relocated to Arizona initially. I tracked her through public records. She remarried in 1990, became Margaret Collins. Passed away in 2017 in a nursing home in Phoenix. She never learned what happened to her son or husband." Samuel said quietly. "No," the historian confirmed. "But she did something remarkable before she died. She established a foundation for missing children and funded wilderness search and rescue teams. Every year on December 21st, the anniversary of Jacob's disappearance, her foundation conducts specialized training for search teams operating in difficult terrain." Samuel looked at Anna, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Margaret had transformed her tragedy into purpose, a legacy beyond her loss. In the weeks that followed, the Trenton family underwent their own transformation. Samuel learned to be present, truly present, in ways that his wealth had never demanded of him. He helped Olivia with homework, joined Anna in her art studio, and spent hours researching the history of their property and the surrounding woods. The mansion, once a showcase, became a home. Formal rooms that had remained largely unused now hosted community meetings about local history and conservation. The immaculate lawn where Samuel had never found time to play now featured a treehouse he and Olivia built together. Through conversations with longtime residents, they pieced together more of Jacob's story. Several children from his class, now in their 50s, remembered him as kind but troubled, a boy who spoke of strange experiences that others dismissed as imagination. Kids can be cruel, one woman told him over coffee in their kitchen. We tease him about his magic wood stories. If we'd listened instead... She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone present understood the weight of opportunities lost, of warnings unheeded. As October gave way to November, Samuel approached the town council with a proposal, a memorial for Jacob and other children lost too soon. Not a grim monument, but a special section of the local park with native plantings, benches for reflection, and educational signage about local history and ecology. The woods were Jacob's focus, Samuel explained to the council. We want to honor that connection while creating something that serves the community. To his surprise, the proposal was met with immediate support. Many council members had personal connections to the Harrington case or knew families who had experienced similar losses. This has been a wound in our community's history, the mayor said. It's time we acknowledge it properly. On a crisp Saturday in late November, the memorial broke ground. What began as a small family project blossomed into a community effort. Landscapers donated plants, local artisans offered to create benches and signage, and the elementary school planned an environmental education program centered around the space. Samuel, dressed in jeans and work boots so different from his usual business attire, worked alongside volunteers to prepare the soil. Nearby, Olivia helped younger children plant wildflower seeds that would bloom in spring. Anna discussed design elements with local artists, her own creative talents flowing into the project. Mr. Dalton arrived mid-morning, moving slowly with his cane but determined to participate. He brought a hickory sapling from his property. This comes from the same stand of trees where Jacob was last seen, he told Samuel quietly. Seemed fitting it should be part of remembering him. Together, they planted the young tree at the center of the memorial space. As the community worked, Samuel noticed something unexpected. Laughter, not the polite chuckles of business meetings or the restrained amusement of charity galas, but genuine joy, the sound of people united in purpose, finding connection through collective action. This is more than I imagined, Anna said, joining him during a water break. It's like the whole town needed this healing. Samuel nodded, watching as Olivia guided a toddler's hands in patting soil around a small plant. I needed it too. I just didn't know how much. Have you ever noticed how tragedy can bring a community together in unexpected ways? Those moments when strangers become neighbors through shared purpose? Comment below with a time when you've experienced the healing power of community action. That evening, exhausted but fulfilled, the family returned to their home. The mansion on the hill no longer loomed as a symbol of Samuel's financial success, but stood as something far more valuable, a place of memory of connection, of purpose discovered through loss and rediscovered through presence. In the kitchen, Olivia placed Jacob's silver locket in a small display box they had created for it, visible but protected, a reminder of the boy whose story had changed their family forever. Do you think he knows? She asked. Do you think he knows we remember him now? Samuel met Anna's gaze over their daughter's head, finding in her eyes the same thought that had been growing in his heart. Some connections transcend understanding, reaching across time and circumstance to remind us what matters most. Yes, he said simply. I believe he knows. 1 year later, autumn leaves again painted the Vermont landscape in vibrant hues of amber and crimson. The Trenton family gathered in their living room, the warm glow of the fireplace casting gentle shadows across their faces. Outside, The first light snow of the season dusted the memorial garden, now fully established and integrated into the community park. 1 year, Anna said softly, curled beside Samuel on the sofa, her head resting on his shoulder. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago, and sometimes like yesterday. Samuel nodded, watching as Olivia sat cross-legged on the hearth rug, carefully opening the small wooden box that now housed Jacob's silver locket. The anniversary of their discovery had become a family tradition, a quiet evening of remembrance and gratitude. The past 12 months had reshaped their lives in ways Samuel once would have considered impossible. His temporary step back from the company had evolved into a permanent restructuring. He now served as chairman of the board rather than CEO, maintaining strategic oversight while delegating daily operations to his leadership team. His schedule included 2 fixed days each week dedicated exclusively to family, non-negotiable time that even the most lucrative deals couldn't intrude upon. "Can I wear it tonight?" Olivia asked, lifting the locket from its velvet cushion. Anna smiled. "Of course. I think tonight of all nights, it would be appropriate." Samuel watched as his daughter fastened the delicate chain around her neck, handling the heirloom with reverence beyond her 9 years. The inscription, "To my beloved Jacob, forever in my heart," caught the firelight, the words that had once represented tragedy now symbolizing connection and remembrance. "Dad, will you tell the story again?" Olivia requested, settling back onto the rug. "About how you came home early that day." Samuel exchanged a glance with Anna. Their daughter knew the basics of what had happened, but they had shielded her from the more disturbing details of Richard's letters. Still, the core of the story, about listening, believing, and being present, had become central to their family narrative. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Samuel began, the words now familiar from multiple tellings. "I was on my private jet returning from Chicago when I felt something I couldn't explain, an urgent need to be home." As he recounted the events that had changed their lives, Samuel marveled at how differently he now viewed that fateful decision. What had seemed like intuition or coincidence had revealed itself as something more profound, a moment when he had finally listened to the voice of connection rather than ambition. The Trenton mansion had transformed alongside its occupants. Rooms once designed to impress now invited living. Anna's artwork hung in places previously reserved for expensive acquisitions. Olivia's science projects and art creations claimed space on surfaces once kept impeccably clear. Most significantly, the basement, once avoided after their discoveries, had been renovated into a community archive and research space where local historians documented not just Jacob's story, but other forgotten narratives from the town's past. The woods behind their property remained a mystery. Despite extensive research and even a professional archaeological survey, no definitive explanation for Jacob's disappearance had emerged. Yet somehow, the mystery itself had become less threatening. The family respected the forest's boundaries without fear, approaching it with wonder rather than dread. "The memorial garden looks beautiful under the snow," Anna observed, glancing out the window toward the community park visible in the distance. The Jacob Harrington Memorial Garden had blossomed beyond their initial vision. What began as a simple remembrance space had evolved into a community gathering place where schools conducted outdoor education, families enjoyed picnics, and seasonal celebrations brought neighbors together. Margaret's foundation had taken notice of their efforts, providing a grant to expand the educational programs. Samuel had matched the funds, establishing a scholarship in Jacob's name for local students pursuing environmental studies. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come home early that day?" Olivia asked, looking up at her father with curious eyes. Samuel considered the question carefully. "I think eventually we would have discovered Jacob's story, but I might have missed the most important lesson it had to teach me, which was," Anna prompted, though she already knew the answer, "that wealth can build houses, but only presence can create a home." Samuel drew his family closer. That success means nothing if you're not there to share it with the people you love. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember what truly matters. What unexpected discovery changed your perspective on life? Tell us in the comments below. Olivia touched a locket resting against her heart, a physical connection to a boy she'd never met, but whose story had reshaped her family's understanding of wealth, presence, and purpose. Outside, The first evening star appeared above the silent woods, watching over both the living and the remembered. The story of Samuel Trenton, the millionaire who came home early and discovered a decades-old mystery, isn't just about one wealthy family's encounter with the unexpected. It's about the choices we all make every day between success and presence, between acquiring and connecting, between building fortunes and building relationships. As we reflect on Samuel's journey, consider your own life. How often have you pushed aside that quiet voice urging you to be present? How many times have you dismissed a loved one's concerns as imagination or inconvenience? The true wealth in Samuel's story wasn't in his bank accounts or business empire. It was in his courage to listen when it mattered most. The Trenton family discovered that their multi-million-dollar mansion contained something no real estate listing could have advertised, a profound opportunity for transformation. Through Jacob Harrington's tragedy, they found their way back to each other. Through remembering a boy lost to time, they reclaimed what they themselves have been losing day by day. Every home contains stories, some still being written, others waiting to be discovered in creaking floorboards or forgotten corners. Every family harbors its own mysteries, its own opportunities for deeper connection. The question isn't whether these opportunities exist, but whether we'll recognize them when they appear. Next week, we'll bring you another soul-igniting story that challenges our perception of wealth and success. The Billionaire's Empty Inheritance follows Japanese tech mogul Takashi Yamamoto, who stunned the world by leaving his $4.6 billion fortune, not to his children, but to the family chef who showed him what real nourishment looks like. It's a tale of loyalty, authentic connection, and the true meaning of family that transcends blood relations. The story of Samuel, Anna, and Olivia continues beyond what I've shared today. Like all families, they face new challenges and discoveries. The memorial garden flourishes, the community heals, and in their once imposing mansion on the hill, a family lives fully present with each other, the greatest luxury of all. What makes their story powerful isn't the millions in Samuel's accounts or the prestigious address on their mailbox. It's the recognition that our most valuable possessions aren't possessions at all. They're the moments we choose connection over distraction, presence over acquisition, listening over dismissing. If this journey through the Trenton family's transformation has resonated with you, take a moment now to subscribe to Soul Igniting Stories. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss next week's exploration of inheritance, loyalty, and redemption in the Billionaire's Empty Inheritance. Your engagement means everything to this channel. Each like strengthens our community. Each share brings these stories to someone who might need them today. Each comment creates connections between viewers who understand that the most compelling narratives aren't about wealth itself, but about what we discover when wealth fails to fulfill our deepest needs. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What possession in your home holds the most meaningful story? Is there an object passed down through generations, a discovery that changed your family's path, or a simple item that represents a turning point in your life? Share your stories in the comments below. You never know who might find comfort or inspiration in your experience. Until next week, remember that the most valuable currency isn't the kind we deposit in banks. It's the attention we invest in those we love, the presence we bring to each moment, and the courage to listen when something calls us home. This is David from Soul Igniting Stories, reminding you that the most extraordinary journeys often begin with simply coming home early. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this extraordinary story here on Soul Igniting Story. I truly appreciate you for taking the time to be with us, to open your heart, and to let these words spark something within your soul. Every story we share is crafted to inspire, to uplift, and to remind us all that love, hope, and resilience are alive in every corner of the world. If this story touched you, made you smile, or even brought a little spark of wonder to your day, I would be so grateful if you could show your support. Please give this video a like. It helps more souls discover these stories. Don't forget to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, or even your own experiences connected to the story. Your words make this community come alive. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next beautiful journey we'll be sharing together. Until next time, thank you again for being part of the Soul Igniting Story family, where every story lights a flame within.